Yeah, good morning. I'm sitting here sharing about my experiences and life reflections on page 140, identifying my privileges. And the fact that, yeah, I did grow up in America and Southern California, and I'm kind of reflecting on my life back then. I was in America for 30 years before I immigrated overseas. And so, five things that I had American citizenship at that time. Didn't even think about it, it was just something that was assumed. Growing up, I had good medical care. Doctors were affordable. My parents were very quick to get us to dentists and that. When we did sports, we got hurt quite a bit, and my parents made sure that we had adequate care for that. My parents were a stable family, a stable marriage. My dad had many friends who went through divorces during that time, but they were quite that. And we had a good income as well. One of the biggest differences that we had was the family capital and the focus on education. Dad had only finished high school and night school after he had three kids. And he saw many people advance beyond him in his industry because they had degrees. And so dad was very committed to us getting degrees. So we had strong educational capital, strong motivation within the family to get that degree and to work for that. Now I can contrast this. At the time I worked as, during university years, I worked as a seafood cook in a restaurant, and there were many illegal aliens working. In fact, when we got off work at midnight, the illegal aliens who had crossed the border from Mexico into America, they crossed at sunset. By midnight, they were at our restaurants, and at the next day, they were working. And so, hiring illegal aliens for menial jobs was very prevalent in our area. The disadvantages, this is my question for number two, is that they did not have work visas. Their life was very precarious. The language was difficult. You needed to learn English to move up. Those who had better English had the better jobs in the restaurant industry. Those who didn't, you were dishwashers, you were gardeners, you did menial labor tasks for that. They had limited educational opportunities. Their family had very little educational capital and motivation in the family. Migrating from Mexico or other parts of Latin America was simply go to America, work among the gringos, earn a lot of money, and send it home, repatriate the money back to them. I think the other difference is that I had a stable family. Others, there was at any point in time their family could be arrested and sent back to Mexico. We have seen this constantly under President Trump. We have seen residents who have been raising families, but in America illegally for 30 years, but no pathway to permanent residency or citizenship. And we've seen those people deported back to Mexico that they left. America's still working through the dreamers, those who were brought into America as young children or babies. What's their status? They're second generation. They're American as much as anyone else. And yet the government has been unable to agree on the status of the dreamers, and is there a possible pathway to formal citizenship for them. Also, illegal immigrants, you only work as you can. You're more open to being ripped off by your employers, working for cash, under the table money, poor working conditions, and not having that. We're seeing that happening not only in America, but also we've been seeing that in New Zealand as well. And we're starting to have the first instances of people who have been trafficked into New Zealand working in illegal working conditions, and we have had some convictions in the workplace for that. The third question is an interesting one. How would my opportunities have been different? And I guess it makes me reflect on the fact that my parents, we immigrated from the southern United States. We were very southern. My father's family, very southern. We were hillbillies in the Ozarks in Arkansas. If I had stayed there, what would have been the limitations? How would my life have been different? I can only guess what it would be. I'd be a racist redneck. I would not have been exposed to a wider world. I would have a limited experience engaging with other cultures. I would probably stayed in Southern culture. Perhaps I might have had a small town mentality. I remember my mom and my dad growing up in a small towns, and when they grew up, And when we came to LA, they said, wow, you can wear whatever you want. And no one criticizes you for that. And I didn't understand it at the time, but growing up later in life, I realized they'd grown up in these oppressive small town environments where everyone knew your business. And so I probably would have been growing up in a situation like that. I would have had closer relationships with extended family than I do now. But it would have been perhaps too much closeness for that. Yeah, would I have been pro-gun? Would I have voted for Trump? Who knows what I would have ended up with for that. So anyway, that's my conjecture. Would have been like if I'd stayed in Arkansas, my family stayed in the South. Yeah, the barriers on question number 4. What barriers make it difficult for a person to attain the privileges that I have had? No question about that. Citizenship is very difficult to get nowadays. Many countries have closed doors on migrants. Many countries have raised the bar and the qualifications required. In Auckland itself, being able to speak English and to drive gives massive advantages to people who can do that, massive disadvantages to people who cannot. Affordable housing is a big issue here in Auckland. Am I close to my work, or do I have to buy in cheaper suburbs far away from where I work? Increases the cost of travel, commuting time that cuts into family time and personal time as well. So we see that right now. Educational capital of the family. How much importance will a family have for a family member to get a good education? Will there be motivation and support, or will that be non-existent for that? I think also, too, if I'm a migrant and I live in my own community, I become very monocultural. And so do I lack the opportunity to be in a multicultural environment, to learn social skills and work skills in working with a wider spectrum of personalities and of people from different cultures? And if so, does that limit my opportunities for success in growing and advancing and actually having a future based on the ability to forge those kind of relationships? Anyway, thanks for listening. This is just some of my reflections from both my American background and also my Kiwi background in these areas. God bless.